Want to welcome everybody to the show. Today we have Trevor Stanley on the show, and he does something that's very unique and very interesting to me when I started talking to him about fasting. This guy did a 21-day dry fast. So it was very intriguing to me because I've been friends with Dave Sandoval for a long time, right? And I knew that the structure of superfoods, we'll just say superfoods, and Dave's process is kind of a foundational piece for health. And I guess I never thought about it. I heard you describe this 21-day dry fast. I said, hell, this is creation. This is the beginning. How did you end up here?
I had to do the most extreme thing possible when people were saying certain sicknesses were incurable. And so I had a few different sicknesses that were infectious diseases that doctors told me just to live with. Here's some medicine to kind of lessen the symptoms. And I just was a person that refused to believe that that was my only option. And so water fasting was available. I'm like, what's the most extreme thing I can do? So the initial motivation was seeking something that would just heal me, physical healing. It wasn't spiritual or mental. I didn't care about that at all. Give me the pill. Will it cure me? No. Okay, here's water fasting. Does that work? No. Okay, then I got into dry fasting. This is the most intense thing, so surely this should work. And then eventually I was like, how far can I go? Like, how far have people gone before? And it kind of turned me into an astronaut, which was exploring my own body and what was it allowing me to do? And how was I able to go farther and farther? Where are my limitations? And then I realized, like, oh my God, this is what, like, all the scriptures I've been about, this is what all of religions, in my opinion, are telling you to do, how to purify your body, because God lives within all of us. And it's pretty much, that's how you find him. Get rid of the inflammation and mucus, and you expose the pineal gland and all your chakras, and now you're an enlightened nervous system being that has more exposure to gifts.
A friend of mine was Eric Neese, hosted The Grind on MTV back in the day, was in the very first Real World. He's the one that introduced me to Dave Sandoval 25 years ago. And Eric brought me around this space, this kind of hippie, raw food space. And I didn't give a shit about it for the first 10 years. But I never heard anybody speak up about a dry fast. So do you have to prep? Do you have to prepare? Because if you're dry fasting, you're not putting anything in your body at all for 21 days.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so no, not even water contact, which is like no showers and no brushing your teeth. I reframed my physical body into the perspective that I'm just a survival vessel. How good of a job did I do to preserve that? The reality is your fat is your stored energy and your minerals are stored in your bones, your hair, and your nails. Did I do a good job at that? Do I feel great going into the most extreme stressed state, which is the dry fast? So to prepare for it, I had to understand my body just wants minerals. Like, who cares about whatever diet people are on? Carnivore, fruitarian, vegan. Your body is a juicer that you're chewing with your mouth, and you're extracting the juice, which is the minerals that are now being deposited in your bones. And so now I'm using that in the fast, because when you fast, you reallocate your minerals to your vital organs. And am I doing that efficiently without electrolytes? No, I need electrolytes leading into the fast to give me potassium to distribute the minerals and the oxygen, because your body will kind of go into a very stressful state when it's not getting the oxygen to the brain, because that's the thinker. If things not working, then the whole body is screwed over, because now we're not kind of making conscious decisions. But if someone is too infectious, or they have too much mucus in the body, then the circulatory system is too clogged. There's too much viscosity in the blood system. So that's oftentimes what people are dying of lately is blood clotting. You know, your life is limited by your clotting mechanism, but now it's happening earlier in life through certain introductory things, medicines that are being pushed onto the people, in my opinion. One of the things I speculate was a bioweapon that I happened to come in contact with. Not to be conspiracy theory, but but it's lacking a cell wall. So the immune system's unable to get rid of it through its oxidative procedures by hydrogen peroxide. So it was just stuck in my body.
So glucose, right? When your body is trying to survive, it creates glucose, right? And if you don't feed that glucose, or you don't put your muscles in an anabolic state, that can turn into fat. Now, how does the dry fast combat against the glucose trying to survive your body?
So the glucose is also stored fuel. Like, it's obviously your liver has a bunch of glycogen in it, and same with your muscle glycogen stores. So your body just chews through that, and it's relatively fast within like 3 days, because that's your kind of onset into ketosis. Glucose, fat stores, and then muscle stores, and then organ That's where your body kind of goes through that in that systemic process. And then if it's chewing through organs when you're skin and bones, like even your brain, it can even eat your brain, or like anything where there's protein and hydration, then that's where like it's red alert. That's you fasted too long. And that's around like 27 to 32 days fasted. But when you get through your muscle glycogen and your liver glycogen, the body's alerted to transition to the next easy fuel, which is fat stores. And then you feel like everything's good. But you are kind of going through a phase where the bacteria is kind of pissed off because you formulated a gut biome, systemically, that's part of your immune system. Mm-hmm. And if you're not feeding it, it's a bunch of little spoiled children that are screaming out, feed us what we usually have. And if you don't, we're going to die. But that's the same exact mechanism that kills off the parasites that you don't want in your body. Okay. Is starvation from not feeding those good and bad bacteria. So it's kind of like intelligent chemotherapy.
The big thing now is, you talked about the gut, is the glyphosate, the bad things that are not natural to the body.
Like you said, it's a foundational mechanism, dry fasting. Like if you get it, you do it. You only heal as far as you understand how to. And we came into this world as a drop of water. And that's what dry fasting does. It actually is purifying all the liquids in the body. There's no excuse for these things not being purged because your body recognizes that this is actually existing in the body. Everything that's wrong with the body actually knows what's going on. If it's like a wart on the bottom of your foot, if there's like a blockage in the heart, the body recognizes that we need to chew through this or discard it. Like I even had, it's weird to admit this, but I did like ecstasy when I was in my early 20s, and I ended up tasting it when it was purging from my body when I was 33. Through a fast. So 12 years later, it was still in my damn body. Like I can definitely taste it, it's like a definable taste, but that was just lingering around, and that's kind of like why people process certain memories on a fast, because you're tapping into water that holds information that hasn't been purged in a decade. Because water is holy, like you and I talked about. It's ancient, it's older than the sun, and it's in you. Storing information.
When you first started going down this road and trying this, did you know anybody else that had done this? What did you know before you went down this road?
Yeah, I think that the people that are switched on in the world, I feel like pick up on the message pretty quickly, even if I am like a nobody that's talking about this. Because it just makes sense, like why wouldn't this be the one way to purify your body, mind, and spirit? Like it should be that basic of a thing. You shouldn't have to buy a supplement or like a protein powder that you're seeing all over Instagram or social media. So like God gave you the ultimate design. Can we replicate that? And we're still trying to with artificial robotics and things like that. We're trying to do anything but fast, essentially. So in my starting process was just going based on stories that I've heard or people that I know who've gone 5 to 7 days. And then I start talking to other people that are doing it alongside me that are like also as crazy as me. And we're kind of sharing information to the point where I was doing 12 days in a fasting group. And I was kind of like leading the group, and they're all kind of like looking at me like a guinea pig. And I was like, I feel good. My heart's good. Like, I think I'm going to go to day 13 and day 14. And of course, I'd think, am I going to wake up the next morning? No one's done this. Like, is this okay?
To this point, as you know, nobody had done this.
That I was aware of. Okay. So there's people that kind of claim to be breatharians. I'm sure your listeners will kind of mention like breatharians exist, but it's hard to have them prove it because a lot of them have been called out. They're having food on the side, or I think it's no food, no water forever. But some people think it's just a mentality. By putting myself out there socially, people introduce like, hey, look at this guy, look at this guy. And eventually I found one guy that was talking not from the ego, that was living in the middle of Russia. I'm like, okay, now this is kind of like more of the legit kind of person I want to see. And his name is Satmarga, SAT_MARGA. And him, I speculate that he is also somewhat legitimate because he looks like he's also going through the same process I did.
And I met Trevor randomly staying at a friend of mine's house that lives right next door to us, by the way. So when you think about alignment and we think about creation, I always talk about fractional information. I always talk about, you mentioned AI. Everybody's scared of AI, but the thing is that nothing is strong as source. So everything that is created on earth comes from source. All these people have lived the wrong way. We're going to all make them dry fast. I would think with what I talk about, aligning people and following the laws of attraction, align through creation, this would be the foundation of a reestablishment or beginning of a human's life, understanding this process.
I think that that's a great avenue for thought. I was just speaking with him about how you define energy, and like, why did we come to this point where we're defining these foods as energy sources? Like, for instance, I had Lyme disease, and for me to cure it, I had to re-experience the target that I got from the Lyme. That was the end point of curing it. The same thing that I started off was the target that the tick bit me.
People in New Jersey are getting they're ending up in wheelchairs because of Lyme disease and all the deers that are up there, by the way.
I was doing ozone therapy, and that wasn't, it can work. It's just not strong enough. But you think about like what's happening. The tick is biting you. A small little tick bites you in your skin, and that bacteria colonizes your entire body. It can have mental disorders where it's like inflammation just stagnant in your brain and causes like all this, psychoneurotic problems. But I'm repossessing my internal fluids. That's what fasting does. And it's the most hardcore approach with dry fasting. I'm repossessing my internal fluids. And so I feel that it's not healing. Who cares about the word fasting? It's really just a rebalancing. Just like the earth can have a drought and it kicks people off that were kind of toxifying that part of the earth. The same thing with the body. I'm kicking pathogens that are no longer serving me, and I'm rebalancing my energy points through the art of just, hey, everyone's got to go now. I don't even get food. That's the golden information, is how long can I survive? That's also going to kill everything that's inferior to me, things that are hijacking a seat on my vehicle. Mm-hmm. But it just so happens that I know I can do 21 days and the parasites cannot. I have access to my spiritual gifts that I didn't think I had. Because in some regards, I think that we're being calcified, we're being limited, our pineal glands and our chakra points, to make us less spiritual individuals. So I can't produce DMT naturally. But I realized that the human body is pretty freaking amazing.
Well, I have a theory about that. And the pineal gland is where you get your sensory from. Probably 90% of the population's probably got a calcified pineal gland because it's never really been talked about, right? You think about the pineal gland and you can activate your sensibilities. Let's say you can decalcify your pineal gland. I don't believe everybody has the same ability. So spiritual advisors, you need to stop saying everybody can do this because they can't. First of all, you need to decalcify your pineal gland, understand your sensibilities. And I think the talent comes from a focused sensibility. Things come to me, and when I met Trevor, because I think I said to you, and I don't even know how I knew this or just popped in my head, I said, I think your focused sensory is your hearing for some reason. And then Bo tells me this auditory story about your hearing. So that was very, very interesting. So your focused sensory is your hearing, right? And now that you've tapped into more of your sensibilities, what do you think that's telling you? I mean, how has that part kind of helped your life?
Hypersensitivity is a superpower, I realized. Like, I always made fun of for being sensitive when I was little, but then when I did these longer fasts, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I actually have hypersensitive smell, taste, hearing, sight, and even telepathic readings. I can just sense the aura within people as well. As I detox these things and have I'm more receptive to hearing, I can only explore it and understand it at my own pace. I'm like, people can die of any, cancer or tumor or disease, and they just didn't figure it out. The same with regard to your gifts. How can I kind of hone in on the superpower? How can I really understand how to utilize it? Because you're not owed that information, but you and I can talk about what we've found so far in our lives and hey, have you considered this? I see my voice as a creationist type of instrument. I wish people would see it that way for their voice, because ironically, parasites like to congregate around your thyroid, which is on your vocal cords, trying to prevent your blue chakra from actually being exposed. So it's trying to prevent your creationist type of instrument to kind of cast, blessings and curses. Look at one of the politicians this day and age is Kennedy. Hear his voice. I think that he was taking down the big pharma companies. It's just a theory, but I think that he was attacked. His vocal cords targeted attack to prevent him from being able to talk. And I'm trying to get into contact with him because I can.
Robert F. Kennedy.
Yeah.
Really?
It's annoying to talk to, hear him talk. I'm like, I can barely even listen to the guy. That's the intention. Is they blew out his creationist blue chakra.
Really?
In my opinion, yeah.
Interesting. I mean, that makes sense.
It does, yeah. He took down too many big players. He's suing everybody in pharma, and they're the ones that know the most about how to target these organs and glands.
When you talk about hypersensibilities, I know your wife is here. How does this affect a relationship? If you do decalcify that pineal gland and you do dial into your sensitivities, you're going to start feeling shit you never felt before. Sometimes I can be like a rocket ship. If something just hits me the wrong way and I have to catch myself, I just take off. How do you manage that? Because if you're more sensitive, right, you're going to respond quicker and probably more passionately.
I picked a wife that was very grounded and stable, and she has a lot of stability, so she's able to be level-headed. It's annoying to fight with somebody who just never sees your side, but we can see each other's side very quickly, and that's what I need in a relationship, even if one of us is wrong. I don't believe in right or wrong, but it comes down to respecting each other, and we can get to that point quickly. And sometimes it's just a matter of me, you look inside, you're like, oh, I'm a rocket ship right now, I'm hypersensitive, or like I didn't eat or something, or like I'm inflamed, and I should recognize that, or I didn't get any sleep and I have more proclivity to be angry. So right now she validates everything I say. She like really respects every information that comes out of my mouth, and I respect everything that comes out of her mouth. She feels very heard because I look her in the eyes and I hear every single word that comes out of her mouth, and unlike I think she's probably ever experienced. At least I tried to do that. And that's like a huge form of love, right? Just listening to someone authentically, making them feel seen and heard.
Sometimes we don't look far enough, I think, to understand that piece, especially going through enlightenment, increasing frequency. I mean, if your frequency raises, right, and you've been around for 20 years and their frequency stays the same, they may not be a friend anymore. That's tough. It's tough to bring someone along with you to go through this enlightenment and to try to, have them reach the same frequency as you. And that's a dynamic that I think people need to understand more, because we don't go that far. We're very short-sighted. We go off our reaction. We go off emotions, right? And I think I mentioned this too, that science, I'll say this again, I say this every show, but science only uses two parts of law of attraction, which is environment and foundation. The sensitivity esoteric part is not considered, but humanity is living on that island of the law of attraction, which is the sensitivity, because we're making all our decisions off emotions, and we don't get past the emotions. So if we plug in the emotional piece to the foundation and environment, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? We might can figure some shit out, and it aligns with what you're saying. Yeah. If you think about that, if you can think that deep, I mean, you know what I mean? That's alignment. You have to understand the sensitivity, esoteric piece in your life and use it in everybody's life, because it's going to give you those answers you just talked about. And it's going to allow people to be able to understand that better and be able to recognize that feeling as they move forward to this new world. Let's use a drug reference. You said ecstasy earlier. You did ecstasy in your 20s, right? How did that make you feel? And now you decalcify your pineal gland. You get hypersensitive, then you start to have this euphoria feeling. How do you feel now with no drugs, doing a fast on this high frequency compared to doing a drug? It's almost the same thing.
I think the drug exposes your own capabilities. I think that you kind of almost like take on the consciousness of the substance that you're ingesting. If you smoke weed, you become the plant. Chill. If you take mushrooms, you become a very complicated psychoanalytical fungi-minded. It's very intelligent consciousness, the mushrooms. But I think with the fasting, you actually do the most natural psychedelic of all, which is getting high in your own supply. And that's what I was kind of like, feeling bleak about life before fasting. I was like, I've experienced it all. Like, people can't really teach me anything new. And then I realized I got sick, and that was like the next game, which was understanding that, oh, wow, there's a lot more in me than I thought. And I didn't really know God until I started fasting a long period of time. So I was doing what Jesus was doing. I was like, oh, that's why he was doing it. It was just fine-tuning your instrument so that energy can flow through you more effectively. Because, who the hell knows what your mind and your thoughts are? Are we just observers of things coming in, and can we curate which ones we want to plant the seed and discard the ones we don't want? And in my opinion, that's how you kind of subvert from a bad trip is by kind of like choosing which energies I want to play with, Bad trip is pretty much playing with the skeleton man, and being like, oh, this is scary. I'm such a bad person. But you're just letting, that energy kind of sit and plant and water that seed,
Yeah.
Same thing with fasting. You can convince yourself you're going to die the next day, but fear has taken route, and it's up to you. Do you want fear to be overcoming your entire being? Because you can be panicked. Like, oh, no one's ever done this. I'm on day 17. What am I doing? Should I call the ambulance? But in reality, it's like, Take a deep breath, trusting your body. And in my opinion, that's what capital F faith is. In all the scriptures is that faith to go another day in a fast. That's how I defined it. Because that's how you're finding God within you, unlike any religion can teach you. You are the temple. That's even taught in scriptures too, right? Not to get too woo-woo, but you're purifying your temple to understand what God is.
Eric Neese, my friend, I've always questioned his ceremony times. We filmed Eric in Peru one time. He did 100 ceremonies. And there was just something in my head. I was like, 100 ceremonies can't be good to you. I mean, it just can't be good. And then when I started tapping in and information's coming through and I'm asking questions and getting information, I was like, do I need to do ayahuasca in Peru? They're like, hell no. No, you're not going to Peru. Do I need to go here? No, you're not going to Sedona either. So then I researched that. And the reason, and people who are on the trend of ayahuasca, when you open yourself up, you're open to everybody and everything. So if there's a soul opportunity for somebody to snatch your soul, whatever spirit that may be, that's where they go. They go to Peru, they go to Sedona. Sedona is a very dark place when you really get down to it. And all my guides have told me, no, John, right? And they tell me to this day, no, you do not need to do ayahuasca. You do not need to do mushrooms to, do a journey. So thinking about your process, do you think when you starve yourself, where you start seeing things and things become more pure, do you think that is a different type of structure of opening yourself up?
I think that, it's a great question. No one's asked these questions before, by the way, but I think the soul must be a coveted thing if both the devil and God want to possess it, are fighting over it all the time. It's hard to possess a human body unless you do a substance that allows that to happen. And now you're an open vessel. And then sometimes people act weird and it's like, oh, that alien, that demon can now play within a human body. What a privilege it has. So that's part of it. You're understanding how to wield this, I don't want to say weapon, but wield like this beautiful vessel during the fast. I can hear, demons fighting over my consciousness, like when I'm transcending the parasites. Because in my opinion, microscopic parasites actually are demons that are experiencing duality. They exist in our body and the spiritual realm at the same time. Hence why Jesus was exorcising demons by having people fast. So oftentimes my clients, they don't want to live anymore, because that's what the parasites tell them to do. Like, off yourself. You don't deserve to be here. You're itching all the time. Who wants to live when you have eczema? You can't go outside. You're ugly. You got like cold sores and just like rashes. But by overcoming death, you experience, like, in my opinion, you experience the alternative, which is more life. So you can go 15, 16, 17 days, and therefore you're rewarded with more life, whether that be physically, mentally, or spiritually. And the number 7, I'll say this, is like a very powerful number. So you do deviations of 7, and like first 7 days is very physical, the next 7 days is mental, and the last 7 days is spiritual. Like some of your followers might even laugh when I say that I've literally heard the devil laughing at me on day 17, where it's shocking. I have to go back into bed and be like, what the hell was that? Like, it's just like this ancient evil cackle. And I one time had a client that was an obese woman, 330 pounds or something up there. And she did over 17 days. And she also said, like, I had no idea how spiritual this life was. She just wanted to lose weight. Yeah. And she also heard this demonic cackle at her. The room turned very dark and she heard this thing laughing. You have one foot in this reality and one foot in the other, like a hallucination. Do we validate it? Because this wasn't drug induced. Are these people that are on the side of the road that are homeless and kind of messing with their spiritual beings with these drugs? You don't take them seriously because they've opened up all these portals, like so many portals within themselves. But with fasting, it's kind of like, I'm of sound, healthy mind, and I'm hearing voices here and there. What are these? And eventually it goes into the one voice that's actually favorable and encouraging them and supportive, because they do away with all those parasites and bacteria that are actually having a sounding board, until you hear that one voice, which is your future self, aka God, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have 2 comparisons to that, because I think creation is linear from the universe to the earth to the human body. Creation from the beginning outside of the universe, God's 4 powers, is all the way to the pineal gland. So if you think about that, if you think about the process of getting to the esoteric place, you're almost stair-stepping the process. Because when I compare this to media, right? When somebody buys fake followers, you might be buying fake followers if you go do ayahuasca. Once you have those fake followers, your conversion is a lot less than your conversion if you did things the right way and built your foundation the right way.
There's an imbalance.
Yeah. So maybe that's the answer we're looking for.
That's exactly right. That's why I call fasting rebalancing.
Yeah.
Because if you buy the fake followers, you're creating an imbalance. If you're doing ayahuasca and you went from kindergarten to college degree, you just skipped all those grades without the lessons,
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make sense. There's an inefficiency unless you're just like a rare exception.
Mm-hmm.
But we live in eternity. There's all the time in the world to advance to a college degree of spirituality. Just chill, can you take a deep breath? And I'm an impatient person naturally, but fasting has really held me down and made me patient and worked on that aspect, which was probably the rebalancing I need. Because I know for a fact my future self exists and it's more intelligent than who I am right now. Because that was definitely coaching me after these fasts. When I'm really clear, you feel that radio signal, with that voice that's kind of telling you simple things like everything is art. Enjoy the dog and kid playing around. That's an artistic expression right now in this present moment. It taught me just to take things slow. It's like these kind of simple things.
Another parallel thing that would align with this. So when you think about being centered, right? Creation is one. When you said schizophrenia is like it's narrowing down those voices. So it's almost bringing you to creation as one. Now, I was just in Bermuda doing the grid work there. And my understanding, the information I have about that is, first of all, there's a binder. There's 3 binders with each system. And in Bermuda, tides lessen and currents lessen. So it's almost like all tides and currents end in Bermuda, which would make sense being the center of the earth. So if you are centering, right, you're centering your vessel. It's the same process. All tides and currents slow down as you come to the center of your body.
Love it.
That makes a lot of sense, don't it?
I think that's how you achieve the peace that everyone's seeking.
Yeah.
Like you got it in you. Like it can't be bought. You can do it anywhere you want, and that's why I love the health thing. Like, how good have you figured out? This riddle that is health. Because if you haven't figured out, then you're going to be squirming around. The energy is not flowing well. Your qigong is not as effective, but it's harder to center. And some people can do that in toxic bodies. Some monks can. But I need a pure vessel to do it personally. Like, I'm not as advanced as a monk, but I need a pure vessel to do it.
You're probably more advanced than a monk. Monks eat terrible.
They do, yeah. And they still
what I
cheat
mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably more advanced than you realize and probably have more abilities than you realize that you may be scared to tap into. Before we get off here, and I want to talk about where you're from, where your family's from a little bit, but if you want to do a dry fast and you want to reach out to Trevor, what's the process let's go through the process A to Z if you get Trevor to do this dry fast for you.
So usually if people are getting very serious about something that's hardcore to cure, I usually like to do one-on-one consultation and make sure they're doing it correctly. Seems like a very easy thing to do, just stop eating food and water, but there's more involved. Prepping well, actually fasting, having the tips and tricks, and also exiting correctly, which can be very vital because your colon shrinks, your veins shrink because it's all trying to find food. There's no cholesterol in your veins anymore because it used it. Your intestines are trying to find the food, so they also shrink. So inviting dense foods will actually expand too quickly and can cause internal bleeding. So you got to do this all correctly. Make sure you go into the fast with electrolytes, with minerals, sea moss, shilajit is good. Hydrate efficiently. And then clean your intestines before the fast, which a lot of people don't do, but it's important. Like even Jesus was doing this. If you read the scriptures, the Essene Gospel of Peace, he was using wine gaskets and heating the water up in the sun and actually performing enemas that way. If the scriptures are correct, the Dead Sea Scrolls. He was in an environment that was very empty and stayed in that environment until the job was done. During the fast, it's advantageous to be in an environment where you're using the air, because the air will have a new definition because your skin turns in its functionality because there's no more protein in your skin. So now your skin's breathing. It's not just your kidneys that are filtering blood. Now it's your lungs and your skin. And utilizing the breath to get oxygen to your brain, and that means that your brain is chill and the body's like, okay, we're getting oxygen to the brain, we're still online, we're good, because that's what blood pressure is. When people have thick blood, it's harder to get to the brain and the heart rate is higher constantly. And then you just pretty much try to stay relaxed and have a psychology of acceptance. It's good to kind of like read about dry fasting during to keep you confident. Start slow. Do 1 day, 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, ladder up like you said, because this is a serious process. We're all in a physical form. Anybody who's listening to this, We're all sharing the same environment. We occupy a vessel that's physical, and we're solving this physical riddle. And in my opinion, this is my version of solving it by purifying it. Nothing purifies it like dry fasting. If you find something, please let me know. But that's kind of the process, and I'll be happy to help anybody that needs more assistance. And thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it. It was a very good podcast.
Yeah. I mean, I try to solve problems. I don't want to talk about the fluff or whatever. I want to dig into the information and see what we can align to even expand the narrative, where people can learn from what we're talking about. How do we find your information, first of all?
Yeah, it's Fasting with Trevor on YouTube and Instagram.
Fasting with Trevor.
Yeah.
If you want to do a dry fast and anything we've talked about today interests you, please reach out. So the other thing is, said you moved around a little bit. I met you here on Sullivan's Island. You're from New Jersey. I mean, what does your family think about this?
So that's one of the obstacles to fasting is sometimes your family and friends have not read or uncovered this information. They think fasting, even in its most innocent form, juice fasting, is very dangerous. So they're going to prevent you from doing it. They love you so much that they don't want you to harm yourself. And no doctor's telling you to do this. But now doctors are getting more enlightened to it. And they even book consultations with me like, hey, this makes sense. So I had to kind of hide from them sometimes when I was doing 7 days and beyond. I was hanging out with them on day 11 of a dry fast. Be like, hey, this is it right now. No food, no water for 11 days. It's all good. I'm still cooking for you, playing with the kids. And so they're no longer threatening me with calling the ambulance. So not medical advice for anybody. Like, make sure you know your research and call me and we can do this properly.
Well, I think if you're 70s, 60s, 70s, I deal with this with my parents. My dad just had open heart surgery. Medical system, if you're listening to this, y'all need to get a grip because y'all go the complete opposite direction to heal somebody. Maybe we need to be starving them a little more, be feeding them more electrolytes. Maybe they heal quicker.
You do. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Think about that.
Scientifically proven, for sure. At least one meal a day while you do the other advice you want to do.
Yeah. That's wild.
80% of your body's energy is used towards digestion. Giving some of it back every now and then will allow you to heal quicker. Autophagy, that's what it does. You're never in autophagy if you never stop eating.
Mm-hmm. Where do you live now? Are you moving to Charleston? I heard you might be moving to Vietnam, or what are you doing?
So yeah, since I see like movement and flow as life, I still like to embody that. I like to move around and travel. Changing up my scenery like makes my brain alive and well and like stimulated. So we do travel around a lot. Yeah. So right now we're going to Romania to explore her mother country and see what that has to offer. And then we're going to Vietnam, picking up our little puppy, and probably heading back to the States, maybe Charleston area.
If you want to do a 21-day dry fast, go check out our man, Trevor Stanley. My name is John Edmonds Kozma, CEO of Bang Productions, owner of the TikTok Live Creator Network Agency, and host of the Unimpressed Podcast. Until next time, thank you.